Back to another professional picks college basketball video. We are on Maryland tonight. Check out the video from yesterday. That one against UCLA starts in about an hour here. We got it into even line too, so it's up to about minus 138. Got some value. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll win, but wishing everybody luck who tailed. But we do have 4 top 25 matchups to preview in this video for this upcoming Saturday, December 17th. So let's jump right into it. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Just love all the extra interaction we're getting this season, and we really appreciate it. So just a quick shout out. But with our first game, we have Indiana, number 14 in the country, heading to number 8, Kansas. This one is going to be in Lawrence, Kansas. We have a true home game here for the Jayhawks. According to Ken Palm, he has these two teams rated fairly similarly to the AP poll. He's got Kansas at number 7 overall, Indiana at number 16. Kansas, number 14th in the country on offense, and number 11th in the country on defense. Very balanced and also great on both ends of the floor. Indiana, on the other side of things, top 20 or 22nd overall in offense and 22nd overall in defense. So both two balanced teams. They're two teams you could kind of trust later in the season. And they kind of cancel each other out here in this case because neither of them has a super glaring weakness. They both shoot the ball pretty well from 3, or very well from 3. They're both above the 80th percentile in three-point shooting, especially among Power 5 teams. They're both near the top. So we have two very solid teams. Kansas is a little bit better on both the offensive and defensive end, and they're going to be at home in this one. So definitely expecting some sort of spread winning in Kansas's favor. I don't think Kansas is going to have too many issues with Indiana's size advantage here. We saw Indiana get dominated by Arizona. We called that one pretty much on the spot. But they do have a size advantage. Trace Jackson-Davis been very solid, but hasn't really improved from last year. Kind of just plateaued a little bit. On the other hand here, though, Jalen Wilson averaging 22 points a game. I think Kansas matches up pretty well. You also have KJ Adams, another undersized post, at about 6'7", but he's a bigger body, very athletic. Reminds me quite a bit of Trace Jackson-Davis, with KJ Adams also being a lefty. He's starting to come along now with that extra playing time. So I really like the way Kansas is trending in this game. Kansas actually also averages more rebounds per game. So even though Trace Jackson-Davis, very solid player, and Race Thompson, I think they had another real star on the team. I think that would separate them. And one kind of issue with Indiana is a bunch of good players, but nobody to really write home, go crazy about. And then you got TJD, who's the one star of the show. If you could slow him down a little bit, I really like almost anybody to stay in a game with Indiana. Looking just at December, Indiana is 1-2. So after their 7-0 start, they've really cooled off here in the last couple weeks. While they're still a solid team, their 15-point loss to Rutgers on the road was pretty alarming because Rutgers should not be a top 25 team by any means this year. Yes, it's an in-conference game, but when you're that talented on paper, you got to win those games, or at least not lose by 15 to Rutgers, who are supposed to be having a down year this season. Even in that Arizona loss we mentioned, Indiana shot the ball 40% from 3. So it's not like they didn't show up on the offensive end. They just couldn't get a stop. That defensive rating took a hit. They were at, I think, 11 in the country last week, down to number 22. They're still a good defensive team, but I think they're going to have some trouble guarding Kansas here, and specifically with Jalen Wilson averaging those 22 points per game. He shoots it well from 3, also gets it in the paint, could really just score from anywhere on the court. And I think that's the one issue here with Indiana's defense in this matchup is they've got solid defenders, but neither of them can guard the perimeter and the paint. Put Miller Kopp on them. yeah, got some size and length, stay in front of him on the perimeter, but he'll just take it down low and score. Put TJD on him. He's gonna go out to the perimeter, dance, hit a three. I don't love Indiana to be able to slow him down. And the one team in Kansas's one loss was to Tennessee, the number one defense in the country right now, who we'll get to later. But they held Jalen Wilson for 3 of 15 shooting in that game, slowed him down, and just really slowed down the entire Kansas offense by default. But I don't see that one happening in this game. Tennessee's got some really great wing defenders, and to be honest, Indiana just does not. So I like Jalen Wilson to have a big game here at home and just really open this one up for Kansas. Whether it's even getting other guys involved, Grady Dick's been real solid all season, and then KJ Adams been stepping up for them as late. Indiana's still a good team. Like I said, they have a bunch of pretty good players. I think when you play a team like Kansas, who has 2 or 3 really good guys, throw in Kevin McCullough, who isn't the best scorer, but he puts up points, grabs a ton of boards. I like Kansas a lot at home, especially in Allen Fogg. I'm expecting at least a -4.5, -5 line. I could even see more here, especially with the way Indiana's been playing lately. But even with that, no official play because the line's not out yet. But I'm still leaning Kansas. I think they win this one fairly comfortably, but not taking anything over a -6, I would say. And then the one thing to note here, Jalen Hood-Schifino, game time decision for Indiana, the 5-star freshman shooting guard. It's been solid, but not exactly maybe what they were expecting. They were maybe expecting another go-to scorer to pair with TJD, but that just has not been the case. Regardless if he plays, I like Kansas a lot in this one, expecting a -5, -6 point spread. Next up, we got on paper the best matchup of the entire week. At number 5, Houston, heading to number 2, Virginia. This one is also in Virginia. We got a true home game in Charlottesville. And Virginia hasn't lost a game yet this year. They're number 2 in the country, just behind Purdue, who's also undefeated. But these two teams are literally mirrors of each other. They want to play the exact same way, both defensive in their identities, want to lock you up, not turn the ball over, slow it down on offense, milk the clock, and really just put that pressure on where you're not getting that many possessions to come back. The other team's playing great defense and just, not turning the ball over, hit free throws. It's very fundamental. Both of these two teams play that to a T. I just think personally, Virginia's going to win this game due to talent. Virginia is the second best three-point shooting team in the country among Power 5 schools. It's a very important stat, I would say, especially just with all the guards and undersized roster that they have. Going up against Houston, where buckets might be hard to come by, you're shooting at the second best among all Power 5. You know you're going to knock a couple down at least. Got guys like Kihei Clark, like the 6-year senior, Armand Franklin can hit it. And then you got like Vanderplas even in the stretch 4. So you got tons of options, tons of ways to put up points. While Virginia plays great defense historically over the last decade, I'd say they're probably the best defensive team. And then Houston's starting to give them a run for their money as of late. But Virginia is number 11 in the country offensively right now. And we haven't really seen them do that in a long time. But this team is really solid. I mentioned it in our preview on them a few weeks ago, but tons of seniors. You're coming off of Tony Bennett's worst season at Virginia in at least the last 7 years, I want to say. This team's motivated. They're playing great basketball, and they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. Like I said, the difference here comes down to scoring the ball. Marcus Sasser, the X factor we have for Houston. We did take them against Alabama last weekend. Houston had a 14-point second half lead. It was looking pretty nice. Yes, it was still early in the second half, but then they completely fell apart, could not score the ball at all in the second half. And I'm looking at Marcus Sasser because he's their leading scorer. He was supposed to be their best player on the team last year before he got hurt. And he was, but he just completely laid an egg, did not show up whatsoever. Shot 18% from the field against Alabama. Just went missing. And when you can't buy a bucket, you gotta have a go-to guy you can lean on. And looking at Marcus Sasser, he's kind of scaring me right now because he's supposed to be that guy. Yes, you have like Tremont Mark, um, Jamal Shed, and Jarris Walker, but you can't rely on those guys to be putting up points every single game. Yes, they're all solid, but Marcus Sasser's supposed to be their scorer. He's got to show up and do better than 18% from the field. That really scares me in this one, especially with Virginia having the same rated defense as Alabama does right now. And on top of that, I think Virginia is only going to improve on their 16th best defense in the country rating as the season continues on. Virginia is the type of team that can be beat by a lot of skilled players. They can beat by athleticism. But like I said, these two teams are literally mirrors of each other. They're experienced, slow the ball down on offense, play great defense, don't turn it over. And in my mind, they're essentially the same two teams, and Virginia just has the better talent. They have way more scorers, way more options on that offensive end. I expect them to be about 3.5, 4 point favorites, and some recency bias. But after seeing Houston play at home and lose to Alabama, I like Virginia a lot here. They're not going to make mistakes. They're not going to get sped up by Houston in this one. Give me Virginia. So far, we're on the two home teams. This next matchup is a neutral court game. This one's going to be taking place in New York. So we got number 16 UCLA versus number 13 Kentucky. And this is literally a battle of offense versus defense. Kentucky's got the 8th best defense in the country, whereas UCLA's got the 7th best offense in the country. So who's going to win? Looking at the matchups a little bit here. So we have Jaime Jaquez, X Factor for UCLA. I think Jacob Toppin, the younger brother of Obi Toppin, matches up perfectly with Jaime. They're both bigger forwards, but Jacob Toppin's long, athletic. He's built for the defensive end. I think he can really slow down Jaquez. And on top of that, their second leading scorer, Jalen Clark. Kentucky's got another great defender in the backcourt in Cason Wallace. He's probably the best freshman defender I've seen in years. Every time I turn the Kentucky game on, he's causing havoc, creates turnovers every game. And there always seem to be big plays, getting big steals, shift the momentum. Big fan of Cason Wallace. And honestly, I haven't watched a ton of Kentucky lately, but seeing their team strength here as defense surprised me. They're very deep. So yes, they're keeping guys fresh, but they have so many weapons on offense that it's only a matter of time before they wake up, pull everything together. And they're one of their losses was in the opening game of the season. So I'm really high on Kentucky. I'm also pretty low on UCLA. Like I mentioned, we're on Maryland tonight to win that game straight up. I think this would even obviously affect the spread here more, but I'm big on Kentucky to absolutely dominate this game. UCLA isn't as deep. You go about 6, 7 guys. And talking about that preview last week. So we're looking at the Oscar Tshiebwe X Factor I have here for Kentucky. Reigning defending player of the year. He's going to have to go up against probably Adam Bona, the highly rated center for UCLA. And I mentioned this stat in the last video, but he's played 4 games against Power 5 schools, and not a single game he's put up more than 5 points. He's a liability right now, and UCLA doesn't have a true post on the roster. You cannot tell me Jaime Jaquez is going to match up with Oscar Tshiebwe. Tshiebwe's going to have at least 15 boards this game, 20 points. He's going to put up a big stat line in New York. I'm really confident on this one, unless UCLA just gets unbelievably hot and just hits a ton of threes. They're good offense. They could, but I'm very confident Kentucky pulls this one out, probably more than any of the games we looked at already. I love that it's a neutral court game. We're not going to get that extra home boost for Kentucky. They don't need it. They're the better team here. Way more options and just honestly match up extremely well with UCLA between having the two counters for UCLA's best scorers, and then the center matchup is not even fair at all. I could see Kentucky being the higher rated team. It is neutral court, but I could still see them being a 3-4, especially if they lose to Maryland, maybe a 5-point favorite. I think Kentucky wins this one by double digits. And we'll wrap up with our last game of the previews. We have Tennessee heading to Arizona. This one is in Tucson. True home game for them. Top 10 matchup. Should be a great game. Tennessee, number 1 in the country on defense. Arizona, number 1 in the country on offense. Just an absolute clash of playing styles. Josiah Jordan-James here I have as the X factor because he's a game-time decision. He would be a big loss for them. He's a great defender, just experienced player for them. Been there for a few years now. Doesn't play necessarily great every night on the offensive end, but he's had some good games so far this season. So losing him would be big. On the flip side of that, Kirk Kriisa is also a game-time decision with an illness. It's Wednesday. I think he'll be good to go by Saturday. Honestly, I think they both play, but it doesn't really change my analysis too much here. They are key players, but the theme, you saw it last week too. Arizona's size is unmatched. Said it last week. Absolutely dominated Indiana. Wasn't even close. Indiana came back a little bit in the second, and Arizona pulled away once again. But Tennessee doesn't have the size to match up in this one. Olivier Nahimwa, and then Euros Plavsic, probably butchered his name, but they have solid players across the roster. Obviously great on defense, but you can't tell me Olivier Nahimwa at 6'9" is going to shut down Azuolas Tubelis, who's one of the best posts in the country right now, and so is Umar Ballo. It's kind of unfair. I don't think too many teams match up well with Arizona at all, and especially in this case with Tennessee relying heavily on their defense. They play sound defensively, rotate, have the depth to keep guys fresh, but you can't teach size. And sometimes at the end of the day, you can't guard size. I don't feel confident in 6'9" Olivier Nahimwa against Tubelis or any of them being able to stop Umar Ballo. Just complete mismatch, averaging about 40 points, 20 boards, 20 to 2. Arizona is one of my favorite teams to go all the way this year. They do have one of the weaker defenses among the top 25 teams, but that's something easier to shore up down the line than it is to start putting baskets in the hoop. On top of this, I know Tennessee's playing well, but I'm not a believer in their 9-1 record, sitting at number 6 overall. They're a good team, and obviously they rely heavily on that defense. So you can't just look at look at the roster and pick out a few guys and just be like, how are they winning? They win on the defensive end. They play solid. Santiago Vescovi hits threes for them. Tyreek Key hits threes for them. But the concerning thing is, other than those two posts we already mentioned, who I believe are outmatched in this game, and Tennessee's 3 top scoring guards all shoot below 38% from the field. So while Arizona doesn't play the best defense, Tennessee's not been converting on those misses. They've been winning on the offensive end, and they're not going to be able to stop that Arizona size. They don't match up well. Good team, but this is just not going to be the game for them. Even though Arizona slightly the worst ranked team, they're at home. So you would expect it a even matchup about a -3. I think the book Bookmakers are going to be with us on this one. And I think Arizona is going to be a -3.5, -4 point spread. They're the better team. Um, I I think Vegas is going to be with us on that. And again, I would hammer Arizona here. Anything could happen, but after seeing them just beat down on Indiana, I love Arizona to win this one at home against Tennessee. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments. Agree with me, disagree with me, who you're tailing, or any other games you're on this weekend. I appreciate you guys for watching, and then we'll just wrap it up with our promo. As always, we have our partnership with Prize Picks. See there on the left, they'll match your first deposit up to $100 using our promo code PROPICKS. It's a daily fantasy app. So you can use it in betting illegal states. Tons of promos pretty much every day, so check it out if you haven't already. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Good luck to Maryland tonight, and I hope you guys all get some wins this weekend. Thanks for watching.